up on Tech News today, you may or may not have ordered an iPhone and may or may not be getting it early. You may or may not have to worry about Google Wi-Fi having collected all this personal information about you. You may or may not be revealing yourself over VPN. And we may or may not answer these questions on Tech News today.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, June 21st, 2010. Tech News Today is brought to you by Slingbox. Watch your favorite TV shows when you're away from home with Slingbox. Check out Slingbox at a Best Buy near you or visit slingbox.com/twit. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
And I'm Sarah Lane.
And behind the board is our recombinant producer, Eric Lanigan.
Hey, guys. How are you?
He's been reconstituted.
Yes.
Hopefully
like
he
DNA.
slept a little over the weekend.
I did.
Good.
This is the show where we kick around tech news of the day, trying to make some sense of it. And joining us is our guest for this Monday, editor of Wired.co.uk, Nate Lanxon. Welcome, Nate.
Hey, Nate.
Thank you. No idea how late it is here. It's like 3 in the morning. No, it's not really. It's like 11.
And yeah, and you assured me that I wasn't. That you're like, oh, I'm always up this hour.
I am. Yeah. I'm generally out of bed by this hour. Yeah.
Are
generally.
you at home or at work still?
I'm at home.
Oh, okay.
You can probably see my Hubble Deep Field poster right there. That's my favorite thing in the flat.
I loved that trickery. It's 3 a.m. here. No, it's only 11.
You Americans
you
don't
would
know
never be
anything
able to
about
check
time
out.
zones.
I've been up for 4 days for the show. Just kidding.
But the one thing we can all agree on, no matter where in the world we are, is that iOS 4 came out today.
Yeah, and in fact,
It's a fact.
I'm running it. I'm running it, man.
Yeah?
Yeah, there have been a few folks, Eric included, who have had really long installation times.
Yeah,
Took me over an hour.
Mine
took me about 15 minutes,
I would
maybe?
say mine was about 15 or
Yeah.
so, yeah. Yours was still going when we came down to do the show,
It's still
right?
going right now. Yeah, it's up there. Just loading all the stuff back on. I don't know what it's up to.
And Nate, how long did yours take? Because yours was going while we were prepping, but then it finished right before the show started.
Yeah, it did. I actually downloaded the OS over 3G, over the modem earlier, thinking, oh, it'll give me a head start before I get home. No, it didn't. It pretty much finished about 10 minutes ago. So I mean, look how different it looks. It's
I don't even recognize
hardly recognizable as an iPhone.
Wow.
I know. It's amazing.
So how
No,
long
it's
total
good.
for your install?
I think it was probably about an hour and a half.
Wow.
Maybe 2 hours. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Well, I
I
guess we
think
got
it
lucky.
backed up everything, like even all my media, which is ridiculous because it's on my iTunes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no wallpapers for me though.
No, you just said no wallpaper. I'm out.
No, I have no wallpaper. I have no multitasking. I mean, I said this. I thought this earlier. Like putting iOS 4 on a 3G. Mine's not a 3GS, by the way. It's just a 3G. It's kind of like
I
putting
see.
Einstein's brain in a fish.
Is yours a 3G?
It's a 3G. Yes.
Is yours a 3GS?
Sure is,
So
Tom.
is mine.
Sounds
There's
like
the
we
issue.
found the culprit.
If you're on a 3G, it
It's gonna
just
take
takes
you
a long
longer.
time to churn through it. That's good to know.
Right,
I'm
well-
glad we teased this out.
Good, me too.
Yeah, the wallpaper thing really
speaking
not
of
that great
wallpaper.
shakes. It just automatically takes your lock screen image and makes it the wallpaper,
Unless
which didn't
you
work at all.
designate
And then,
another,
yeah, you gotta
which
go.
we figured out earlier because we were both going. I said, well, my background doesn't really work because the background for all my apps, it's too busy.
And I
It's
don't want
only
an
good
app
for the lock
background as
screen.
my lock screen.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can do that if you want.
You can.
Along with a lot of other things.
The folders thing works for everybody, though, right? No matter which phone you got.
Not for me, it hasn't. I'm trying to drop Angry Birds on top of Sonic 2.
Yeah?
It's having none of it. You know, it's just Sonic's just dashing from side to side.
Oh, that's
you really
weird.
just want to be in a folder.
You should try.
He will
I
not
mean,
be.
Interesting. So you can't make folders out of anything, or is it just those two apps? I wonder.
No, I have to say it feels exactly like OS 3. So I don't know. It says it's OS 4, but it looks exactly the same.
Maybe you didn't get the right one.
Yeah.
Maybe Apple just wants
Maybe
me
you
to buy an
downloaded
iPhone.
3 by accident.
Well-
Folders working okay for me, Tom.
Yeah, I used it.
Pretty cool.
I'm not putting everything in it because I'm like, the programs I use frequently, I want to have direct access.
and
I
you
don't
want
have to
that-
click twice.
Yeah, you want that full icon because the problem is once you put them in a folder, then they get really small. And I mean, if you're familiar with the way that you are organizing your your apps on your phone, it's not the hugest problem in the world, but it kind of, I don't know, it takes away from the visual a little bit. It also tries to guess what, it guesses pretty well what you're lumping together. So I put Gowalla and Foursquare into a folder, and it suggested social.
Right, because that's probably what they're submitted as
to the
into the
App
App
Store.
Store. What have their categories?
Yeah.
Have you tried to put two non-similar apps?
So
in
how
the same
about
folder?
Facebook and Instapaper?
All right,
those
yeah.
seem pretty non-similar, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so let's do that, and let's see what it says. It says social.
So did you put Facebook on top of Instapaper?
Yes.
And it said social. That's interesting.
I wonder
if it just goes with the first thing that you
It's possible.
that you
That's
pick.
possible.
You can rename it, right? You can pick your own custom name.
Yeah. I changed my Foursquare Gowalla to geolocation. I felt that it was more specific. But anyway, yes, a lot of customizing stuff.
So there you go. If you're on a 3GS, why not update? It's not going to take you long. Most everything works. I've tried the multitasking. It works.
Yeah.
I like the new email interface.
Me too.
With the threaded. You were raving about the threaded
I like
emails.
to know how many emails have, before I open it and start looking through it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that you get an all email option now where
Right.
you don't have to go into the different accounts. You can just check your new email for everything.
I love that.
That's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
And so yeah, if you've got a 3GS, I saw some people saying, "Oh, I don't want to ruin the surprise. I want to wait until I get the iPhone 4 to try it." Okay, fine, but really, I get it. Just get it.
Why not get
install it.
familiar with it so that when you get your new phone, you're a whiz with the thumbs.
And then
You know what? I'm with those guys. I'm totally with those guys because
You
right now
are?
I'm on a 3G. Yeah, absolutely. I'm on a 3G. So I've had I've never used a 3GS apart from like we had one at CNET back before I was at Wired and just played with that a bit. Never actually used one as my own phone. So I'm still on the 3G OS 3. I'm going to go from this to the iPhone 4, which is quite a big leap. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to that. I'm glad this thing's broken. Maybe it's because I spilt something on it the other day. I don't know.
on purpose.
Well, you only have a few more days.
Yeah, accidentally. I don't know. Whatever.
I would say if you have a 3G and you want to upgrade to the new iOS 4, you should set aside some time on your calendar.
Right.
It seems.
Yeah. I don't know if you actually have a few more days or a few more months.
Yeah, it may be the iPhone 4 may be out by the time you get to install it. So. And if you're wondering, iPad not getting iOS 4 yet. That doesn't come until later this fall.
This fall, and they don't have a specific date, right? It's just
Not that I know of,
sometime
yeah.
around Halloween or something.
Now, if you did order an iPhone 4, you might not have. Because
Right.
lots of people are getting emails this weekend from AT&T and Apple saying, "We apologize, but your iPhone order has been canceled."
With no real explanation, except to say your credit card has not been charged. Although some folks have gone back in and looked at their bank, and sometimes you can tell
pre-authorization
when there's a pre-auth sort of floating, waiting to be used, and that hasn't been wiped out yet. So people are kind of going, "All right, well, if I'm getting charged for a phone that I don't get, and then I'm going to have to, call a credit card company, and this is just a major hassle in the making, apparently."
And then Eric just showed the other side of it on the video, which is getting the notification that your Apple iPhone 4G has shipped.
And you'll get it on
You're
Wednesday.
going to get it on Wednesday.
Not Thursday. You don't have to camp out.
Yeah, not going to happen.
It's already here.
It's not
going to happen.
Yeah, that's a lie.
Actually, if it does happen, I don't know. I'll buy everybody a cookie, or I don't know. So I just don't think that's going to happen.
Chocolate cookie.
Everyone in the world.
All right.
Cookies on me if you get your iPhone on Wednesday.
So if you have ordered an iPhone 4, you may or may not have paid for it. You may or may not be receiving it, or you may or may not be getting it early.
Why is this so difficult, Tom? Why has this been such a cluster F?
Because
Why?
Apple and AT&T are using a quantum ordering system where all orders exist in superposition of both being ordered and not ordered.
Well, cut it out.
And
Apple
so
and
when they try to
AT&T.
measure the acceleration of the arrival of your iPhone, it collapses them, and you just don't know which way it's going to go.
Well, the iPhone becomes invisible,
Yeah.
and then there's nothing to ship.
And a cat dies. That is, as I understand it, the explanation.
Schrödinger's iPhone.
Feels like Monday.
All right. Let's move on to the Google, who are in hot water after France reviewed the payload data from the map.
The infamous
What are
Street
the
Google
Street View. Yes, the Google Street View folks.
where there was data accidentally collected from open Wi-Fi networks.
And the French say, "We are shocked to find gambling
We are shocked.
We are sacre bleu. We are shocked to find passwords in clear text, other kinds of fragments of personal information, including pieces of emails in this Wi-Fi, things that are private information that Google should have no. No
how do they know this?
Because French, the Germans, and I'm missing somebody else, made Google hand over the data so that they could examine it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the thing
who's sending passwords over clear text, over plain text? I don't understand. Why would you send a password at any point over
my boss,
plain text?
Squarespace does that.
You are sitting in an unencrypted Wi-Fi hotspot in a cafe. And you're using a site that doesn't have a secure login, or you're using old version of Gmail before they made secure login default.
And the whole cafe thing is something that's been brought up because when the story, which we've been following for a couple of weeks now, first came out, people are kind of going, well, it's your fault if you're not encrypting your network. I mean, that's just stupid. Why wouldn't you do that? Well, a lot of us enjoy going to a cafe now and then and using their free Wi-Fi, and perhaps that's unencrypted. And, I'm not complaining about it when that happens. I'm just happy to be able to get on the internet while I'm having my coffee.
Well, here's
Sit there
why
for a little while.
I don't think Google is doing anything nefarious or wrong. There's an excellent post up by Robert Graham at Errata Security. We'll have the link in the show notes that goes through the technical details of how Street View collected this data and why they did it. And if I can try to oversimplify it and summarize it, when they were using the Street View cars, they were triangulating data off of Wi-Fi access points. The reason being, it helped them create better maps.
Right.
They could have maps not only of hotspots, but be able to tell where the car was at any point just based on the Wi-Fi. So the idea of this was to create and record nearby Wi-Fi access points. Now, you can say, well, why didn't they just record SSIDs? When you're doing this kind of data collection, you want to capture the MAC address, the unique serial number of the Wi-Fi device, and you want to collect the SSID. And if you get some packet header information, you can detect Wi-Fi hotspots that otherwise would be hard to detect. And for example, let's say the hotspot is inside a building and you can't see it. But Sarah is sitting out in front of the building and is between the Street View camera and the hotspot. And she's connected to it. You can see her packet information because it's out in the air, it's Wi-Fi, and deduce what the name of that hotspot in the building is. And they actually, with some of this, they can image the building. They can tell where pillars are and things that would block signals based on all of this data, because you've got so many packets and so many GPS points. So you can do some really cool stuff with this. The problem comes along that in that header information, in that packet information, if it's unencrypted, sometimes there's a little bit of payload data. It's not much because you're not spending a lot of time trying to get that. You're just reading the header.
And usually it's gibberish because it's only a few letters or some numbers or nothing that can really be associated with anything. But apparently every so often it's an actual full password.
Well, you're collecting so much data here that it's almost impossible with people using unencrypted Wi-Fi connections not to collect something like that.
Right. But then you get into like, okay, well, people go, hey, if it happens even 1% of the time or 0.5% of the time, that's still too much. That's still, you're crossing a line there. But then you sort of get into the whole, all right, well, let's be realistic here. Okay, so we're talking about most of us encrypt your networks. Okay, fine. Well, what if we're at a cafe and it's not our network and, it's not up to us? Well, how do they know you're there? And you're there with 20 other people, and there's all this information going in and out. And it's like, I don't know. I find it sort of hard to believe that someone is going to be tracking you down to the point that then they're going to be following you to the cafe, and then they're going to be looking at all the information, and it's Google, and they're going to do something terrible to you. It's just the whole kind of conspiracy theory thing is just not working out for me in this situation.
So this article makes a very good case. It really justifies why Google would do this in a non-evil way, like why this would actually be a good use of this data, why they need it. So why did Google immediately, when they got caught, say, oh, whoa, this was a mistake, we had no intention of this, and this should never have been in there? Didn't they need it?
Apparently old code that they really didn't even mean to include anyway.
Well, and I think what they were saying was, we were trying to map the Wi-Fi access points. It was a mistake that any payload data got recorded, and he's describing the mistake here.
So what they should have done was, as the site describes here, slice off after the first 24 bytes, and then you wouldn't get the payload. That would just preserve the MAC address, signal strength, and get rid of any private information after the first 24 bytes.
It's essentially them saying, you know what, we were never after any payload data in the first place, so we didn't even think about what payload data would be in there because we were just reading the header information. And so, yeah, his suggestion there would get rid of any chance of accidentally collecting payload data. And he also says it's really easy to protect your data. Turn on WPA. This will completely stop anyone from spying on your private data. If you don't encrypt your traffic, then you, by implication, he says, don't care if people eavesdrop on it.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of, I'm always reminded of people, who use like passwords like 12345 and then get upset because they get hacked.
Because they get hacked.
You got to try. You got to be on the ball about some of the stuff. People are, can take advantage of you. Shut it down.
And really, the government, in my opinion, has no business looking at this payload data. The Irish are the only ones that I know of who did it right, which is like, you know what? We don't like that you have that. Please delete it.
Yeah.
Anything you captured in Ireland, delete it. We want to make sure you deleted it, and then it's gone, and nobody should see it.
If I was a French citizen, I'd much rather have Google being like, sorry, mistake, not going to do anything with it, than the French government
like
looking through all my
clawing
stuff.
through it and like, yes, we found your password, Sarah Lane.
Yes.
Yep.
You're very, very good French accent, Tom.
Thank you. I was just in Canada.
Your password.
That is exactly how they talk. No, it's not. Don't write in.
It's just in Canada.
Both Amazon and Barnes & Noble are in a little price war here.
Yep.
Barnes & Noble announced today that they have slashed the price of their regular Nook, the one that has 3G and Wi-Fi, down to $199, and introduced a brand new spanking Nook that is Wi-Fi only that'll retail for $149.
Tom, do people want a Wi-Fi only ebook reader?
Well, I suppose for $149 I could see saying, you know what? I only have Wi-Fi on my iPad. Why do I need 3G?
Yeah.
I'll just use the Wi-Fi and save some money.
I would say $50. I would just say, hey, if I'm out and about, I either find a Wi-Fi access point or I wait to buy a book till I'm home. I don't think that I would do that to save $50.
You would?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, because I always think of it the
travel.
opposite way, like $50 just the one time to never have to be inconvenienced and not be able to get what I want when I want it.
Well, and then you could actually save a little money and never be inconvenienced by buying the Amazon Kindle, which dropped their price down to $189.
But that's just 3G.
It's only 3G,
not
right.
Wi-Fi.
Not Wi-Fi.
So if you're in somewhere like San Francisco, which we know we have 3G problems every day.
Yeah, but that's AT&T, and I believe it's Sprint on the Kindle. And my 3G on my Kindle has always been fine.
Yeah, Sprint 3G customers don't have a lot of complaints, or at least they're not very vocal about it.
The big situation would be I'm in an area that doesn't have 3G. And I want to buy a book because I'm traveling, and now I can't because I don't have Wi-Fi.
I love the way that these sort of price wars have become. They've made us all out to be these rabid book collectors. Like, I need my book right now.
Everywhere, at all times.
I'm slightly out of 3G range.
Right,
Wi-Fi model.
So we don't have the Nook in the UK because, well, we just don't. So, fill me in. Can you put books on here over USB or something like that?
Yes, you can.
You can. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's kind of like a regular device. It's just not like the 3G Kindle.
It's
so you can just
the Nook is
you can
essentially
just put your stuff on it that you download.
The Nook is essentially the 3G Kindle with Wi-Fi, except for the new one that just came out today is not. It's like the Nook without the 3G. Does that make any sense?
Right.
Yeah. They're essentially the same idea.
So all of them, Kindle, Nook, you can put things over USB. But who does that, Nate? I mean, really?
Well, actually, the thing is, the only way we get the Kindle in the UK is by buying it in from Amazon.com. So you have you have to use the US store, and it's the US mains adapter in the box, and it's all billed in dollars. Which it's all fine, but it's not really the same experience. We don't have the Nook. The other alternatives we have are the Sony reader, pretty much, and that's all pretty much over USB. Or you can buy in a couple of the other cheaper readers, but they're all USB. So for us, I mean, I know that the Nook's not on sale, so it's not really an issue, so I don't even know why I'm making a deal out of it. It's kind of like what we're used to. So I would say we would use USB.
And the Wi-Fi only one, and just buy it for $149, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Save the money. Yeah. And a couple of chat room people pointed out you can go into the Barnes & Noble store and use the Wi-Fi in the store for free on your Nook.
Yeah. It's like the Starbucks for the e-readers.
Yeah, exactly. But the price war is good for everyone because a Kindle at $189, That's compelling.
I don't have a Kindle, so remind me what that's dropped from.
That's dropped. Well, it used to be $3.99 way back in the day, and it's dropped
Get out of
more
town.
recently from $2.59. $2.59 was the price before today.
$259 to $189. Okay, so that's a significant drop.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
I paid $3.99 for mine.
Well,
I'm dumb.
Well, no, you're an early adopter.
Also known as dumb. All right, let's take a break to thank our sponsor, Slingbox, who are bringing you this podcast. I have a Slingbox. I use a Slingbox. I've used it many times. I did not use it on this last trip because I just didn't have time, but I used it when I went to Hawaii to keep up on all the shows because they're on at a different time in Hawaii.
You want to be out the beach
You can
all
watch
day.
them early.
You want to watch your shows.
Yeah. You want to be able to go back to the beach. You don't have to wait around.
Right.
You know, go out to dinner. You can watch them off your DVR and pretty much you hook up your Slingbox to your TV and the internet, and then any TV that you get, whether it's recorded or live, you get on your laptop, your mobile phone, any other device you use. Pre-recorded shows from the DVR, everything. So check it out. Go to Slingbox, go to Best Buy and take a look at a Slingbox there, or you can just check it out at slingbox.com/twit. AT&T in a little bit of a hot spot over their microcell.
Oh, the microcell, the $150 contraption that helps you get the service you already pay for but doesn't work.
Right. So with the microcell, you pay 3 times. You pay once for your AT&T service that doesn't work in your house.
Right.
Pay a second time for the microcell that is using your internet, which you pay a third time for because you have to pay for your internet. Now, AT&T has a cap on 3G plans.
Yeah, unlimited plans.
There are no more unlimited plans unless you've grandfathered in.
On the
right?
way of the Velociraptor.
So, exactly. So, not quite as aggressive.
So this is really silly because, I mean,
Almost.
the thing just simply is not using 3G. It's not using their network. It's using your cable modem or DSL.
Exactly. So if you go over your 3G limit, I'm sorry, I should back this up a little. If you're using 3G data in your house that is connected to the microcell, it counts against your cap. Even though you're not using AT&T's network, you're actually using your own network that you already paid for, so you get to pay a 4th time.
It's ridiculous.
Wait, hang about. So you're doing this even though you've had to pay for a box to effectively fix a network that doesn't work?
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
The craziest thing about this whole story is that people are actually buying these microcells because AT&T service is that bad in certain areas. I know a bunch of folks, in fact, who have had, especially in office buildings and places where there's a lot of people with iPhones and nobody can make phone calls and they can't keep going outside.
You live on some weird mountainous area.
You live on some weird mountainous area or, just in a city. Just in a regular city.
Or in a mountainous area
with a
like
lot of electricity.
The Haight.
Yeah, right. In my house, for example, not a lot of phone calls happening. So that's the craziest thing about it. You think about this, you're like, this is just the worst idea in the world.
This is
like somebody's just kicking you in the rear.
Exactly.
Like, repeatedly.
This is so not don't be evil. I mean, here they have this device that's supposed to be for counteracting their lack of network connectivity near you, but in the end they turned it into something that will make even more money off of you.
Now, AT&T very reasonably says, why are you using 3G in your house if you've got your network? Use Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. Don't use the 3G data in your house. And that's fair enough, but what if I don't have Wi-Fi? What if I only have wired network? And you shouldn't, your 3G over the microcell shouldn't count.
It's another example of AT&T saying, well, what about this? And yes, that is logical. I always use Wi-Fi when I'm at home because it helps keep my iPhone battery alive a little bit longer. But I don't want them telling me how to use my phone.
Yeah. Now, on the good side of news for AT&T, if you use Apple's new FaceTime on the iPhone 4, if you get it, whether you've ordered it or not, it won't count against your carrier minutes.
Yeah, and at first it's sort of like, well, obviously, because it's just Wi-Fi. It's not 3G, right? So why would it?
FaceTime doesn't work over 3G, right? You have to have Wi-Fi access.
It has to be Wi-Fi, yeah.
Well,
but then what happens when they have agreements with the carriers and then it opens up and you're on a phone call and you're out using your 3G in a non-mountainous area of the Haight? And then you switch over to video, and is that going to get complicated? How's that going to work? Are you going to is it going to switch over to the data plan at that point?
I would think it has to.
I would think it has to,
because it's going to be data. FaceTime's going to work over data. There were some worries that they would actually continue to use the voice call as a backup to FaceTime and that you would then get charged minutes.
Exactly.
But it doesn't seem like that's the way it's going to work.
Well, I certainly hope not, because I've been kicked in the rear enough already.
That's true. Nobody likes to get kicked in the rear over and over again. And that's why Telstra is getting $11 billion, because they're tired of being kicked in the rear by the Australian government, who wants to roll out a national fiber network to 90% of its population. Telstra was the last holdout. They said, no, we're going to compete with it. They finally realized that's silly. Everyone is going to want to use the fiber network. We've got this ailing old copper network. We're not going to be able to afford to compete with this. So what they've done is sort of shocking. They've sold their entire network to the government of Australia. All the copper lines, all the right-of-ways, all of the ducts are going to the Australian government, and the Australian government will take over running the network for Telstra. Telstra will still have an ISP. And they will still run that part of the business. And
have $11 billion in the bank.
And they'll have $11 billion in the bank to start, busting out a brand new wireless network and go LTE or whatever they're going to do for 4G. So it's good for everyone. Telstra gets a bunch of money to invest. The network is now run by the government, so it will be open to everyone. Anybody who wants to run an ISP will get charged the same amount to operate it. So there's not going to be any net neutrality issues because it's going to be one provider. The big fear here, though, is you're in Australia where the government has continually been pushed to put in censorship rules on the internet, and this makes it incredibly easy to do that. So what do you think of it now?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, the whole ISPs being able to, log your searches and all that junk in Australia. Fine. I don't know.
I mean, it definitely leapfrogs them, right, Nate? They go right from being, this sort of amalgam of providers to having this super fast fiber network that everybody can use.
Yeah, but it's also kind of under the government's control, right? So, I mean, does this not give the government some kind of monopoly? I mean, I don't get the impression that there's loads of networks out there competing in Australia. So, I mean, if they've just got this one network that's the government that's running it, I mean, well,
the government's not going to be the ISP, so there'll still be multiple ISPs. They'll just all run on the same backhaul, essentially.
So they're essentially having the backbone as opposed to the front side of the
that's
the
the idea. Is the government runs all the pipes, but other people provide the access,
and they can censor all of it.
Well, they run the backbone, so they can do whatever they want on the backbone.
Backbone
conceivably,
broke.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
How about that?
We're going to censor it on the backbone. The ISPs can do whatever they want. And they don't have to. And that's been one of the problems is Telstra especially has not cooperated with the censorship test because they're 100% against it. And so this kind of can cut them out of the process.
We'll have to be following the progression of the story very closely on TNT.
Wired.co.uk has a story today about some new Toshiba laptops, the Libretto, the AC100, and the R630. The Libretto looks really interesting, Nate. Yeah, this is something I wanted to flag up because after the Courier got killed, I kind of thought, that is something that could have been made into a pretty cool device. The UI itself was pretty interesting, but what this is basically a netbook, but instead of a keyboard, you've got another 7-inch touchscreen. So you can have a soft keyboard or, like the iPad, it doesn't have to have a keyboard. You can have another video on it. You can have another interface on it. You could have a screen just for video when on the left you've got IM, something like that. It's kind of taking a step for netbooks. What concerns me is the fact that unlike the Courier, which, did get killed, it's just Windows 7. And Windows 7 is great, but part of the problem with netbooks is that, well, not netbooks as such, but tablets, is that they don't really lend themselves to a full-fledged OS. They kind of need some sort of customized version on it. That's sort of what people want now. And I don't know, this seems like it's a really great idea, but I'm still not entirely convinced, even though I like the form factor. I think it's interesting. It's definitely pretty, although when they were demonstrating it typing, it looked kind of clunky. It looked like it would take a long time to put anything in.
It does, but I mean, because it's a soft keyboard, you can get different keyboards. I mean, the keyboard that we've got in the story is kind of it's full QWERTY. You've got your numbers, you've got your function keys, you've got your navigation arrows, you've got the whole lot. It's a full keyboard. If you could imagine being something like the iPad keyboard, I mean, I don't know about you, but in landscape mode rather, I can type pretty fast on the iPad. So I could see that being a use. Having a screen that folds up, you can have it on your knees. It's a real pain on the iPad to take notes. Like in meetings or whatever, because you have to be looking at the screen all the time, whereas this seems like kind of a go-between. So I'm really interested. Sadly, even though it's our story, I didn't personally get to play with it, so I'm still waiting to have a prod.
What would be a good situation where you weren't using the second monitor as a keyboard?
Go ahead, Nate.
Well, I'm thinking, I mean, the thing that I generally use side by side is web browsing and IM and /Twitter. So you could have one on one screen and one on the other, and you have them in portrait mode, which is kind of what you want for web browsing generally, or for IM. So you could have both of those side by side.
Yeah, so it's like a dual monitor kind of a
and
situation.
you could extend a web page from one down to the other and get like a wider view of the page, and it can run things.
That would be ugly, don't you think?
Well, it depends on what you're looking at.
I guess so.
You could have two web pages side by side, like you're saying.
Yeah.
The DS does it quite well. If you think about the DS, I mean, the DS on some games, the Nintendo DS, that is, it splits the screen between two. So you've got something going on the top and something going on the bottom, and the bottom bit's what you interact with, and the top bit you don't. That actually kind of works in the DS. It proved that is something that people can use. I'm interested.
They also unveiled the Toshiba AC100, which is an ARM processor inside 3G-enabled Android tablet. So this comes with an always-on situation. You treat it like a cell phone. You never turn it off. You just open it up and start using it at any point.
But what's weird about this is that it's an Android with an actual keyboard and mouse. And I don't know. I've not seen one of those. I've certainly not used one of those before. And I'm yet to be convinced that Android translates well like that. But it's an interesting idea. Really.
So this is the first Android-based device with a keyboard and mouse.
First I've heard, anyway.
It's certainly the first I've heard of.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say nobody's ever done it. And these are all just prototypes. When are we going to actually see these?
I don't know. I'm hoping sometime this summer, I guess. But these were more, prototypes, and they were doing it as a celebration of 25 years of making laptops or something like that. And so they were showing these off as the next step in netbooks or in tablets and things like that. So whether or not any of these make it to the shelves, I don't know. But I'm really keen. I was really sad about the Courier dying because I kind of liked that. I liked the form factor, and I liked the interface. So I'm glad to see something actually coming out of the woodwork.
So this is vapor hardware, essentially.
Well, I don't think so. It said the netbook version running Android is a pretty solid product, and it's going to be on sale for about $500 in Japan. That I don't know. I think that was pretty soon. The one that was farther off, and I wanted to ask you guys about this because I don't think you said the price of the dual screen one, which they've called just a concept PC. How much is that one?
The Libretto is what, $1,000?
It's $1,099. Yeah,
$1,099.
So not exactly an iPad.
Also going to be produced in limited amounts. If it, I mean, these you see these things a million times a year, especially at CES, right? Mm-hmm. And 70% or more of the time they never come out. So yeah, you can give me a price and then say soon, limited edition. To me, that sounds like you're never gonna come out.
Let me know when it's actually going.
Yeah, when you've got a ship date and I can pre-order.
Can you ship it to me? Then I want to hear about it.
Not interesting.
But these are probably going to hit about the same sort of time as we get the Google OS, the Chrome OS, aren't they? So these are sort of going to be side by side, Chrome and Android at the same time. And if I was making these netbooks and I was shipping a netbook and I had the choice of Android, which is a OS made for for phones and handhelds, or Chrome OS, which is built for netbooks, I'm going to ship the Chrome OS.
Actually, guys, the Android one's coming out in August, and the dual screen one is coming out in July.
Okay, so we actually got some dates. That's good. Mm-hmm. That gives me that much more confidence in it.
Well, July.
I still can't pre-order.
That's right around the corner.
Yeah. They got a pre-order link? No?
I don't see one.
Keep digging. Keep digging. You can find it. All right. New interface for Gmail on the iPads. Kind of sexy, right?
Yeah. I mean, so I've got an iPad, Tom. You've got an iPad, and Gmail works really well. It's optimized for the iPad anyway.
This is when you're using Gmail in the browser, not in the mail app.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you just go to gmail.com, and it looks pretty good, and it's kind of got that split screen. You got your left column, which shows all the emails, and the right column is each email individually opened up, very similar to most email clients. But the problem is that let's say you're composing an email on the iPad until now, you were still composing it in that right-hand column, and it was a little I don't know, it was a little clunky, and people were kind of going, I want to be able to maximize this. It just kind of looks weird. So now they've just sort of got this nice dialog box that opens up on top of everything, gives you full screen, doesn't have that left-hand unread email count to distract you.
Yeah, here's the old one.
Yeah,
and then so the old one had all the stuff on the left hand, and you were cramped, and then the new one just kind of pops up over.
It pops up the way that people are just used to using email, and it's one of those things that you go, it's that really that big of a difference? No, it's just a functionality and design thing that was easy to implement, and now it's live.
I think it's great that Google is putting so much effort into their HTML5 web interfaces for iPad and iPhone apps. It shows that you don't need to go through the App Store to develop and deploy quickly.
Very good point.
I think they found that out when they did the Google Voice thing, because that was the only way they could get it on the iPhone, wasn't it? By basically doing it as a web app. So they've obviously got, guys doing this stuff, and this is probably just a product of that, I guess.
At the Cypher conference in Sweden, finding was announced that there is a flaw in VPN if you're using it over IPv6 and you're using point-to-point tunneling protocol, which is the more common protocol, PPTP. They found out that you can identify the IP address of a user who is otherwise hiding behind VPN, and it's also relatively easy to find a MAC address of a computer's name. And so what this could affect a lot of people is they're trying to hide from anti-piracy groups by doing all of their peer-to-peer stuff over VPN, and if they're on IPv6, they could be identified. So the solution is to either switch to IPv4, if you know how to do that on your machine, or to possibly use OpenVPN as an alternative to PPTP, although that has its downsides because it's not always supported. It's harder to implement on older hardware. And it has, some wide-ranging effects on the corporate world where you're using VPN to tunnel into your corporate network because it's the only secure way to access your corporate data. And so this is the flaw as we move to IPv6 that we're going to have to fix.
Is there any, what percentage of folks are using IPv6? Do they even know that?
Most people don't even know.
Yeah. That's nothing that I've ever looked at.
You may be using IPv6 right now and have no idea.
I'm probably not.
You never know. See, do you know?
No.
Yeah. Is that MacBook even, yes, it's Snow Leopard?
Yes.
It could be.
Could be.
You just don't know.
I just don't know.
So anyway, it's quite a scary hack for the folks who thought, ha 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 ha, I can pirate all day long because I use Relax VPN.
How will this be fixed? How will this be fixed? Because it seems like it's a huge global corporate standard. Whose job is this to fix? How will it be?
Everyone who uses VPN. Yeah, somebody's got to fix. Well, you can switch to OpenVPN, and there's probably a lot of other mitigating factors that can allow you to what's the word, to
circumvent?
No. Adjust your,
get away with
your
murder?
Protocols to murder people. Exactly.
Or at least get a lot of free music.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, but this is something to pay attention to, especially if you're a corporate IT person. On to the calendar. Google Wave out of beta today. Congratulations, Google Wave.
I wish I used it.
Google's faster and faster at this out of beta stuff.
I could be more interested.
You could be actually excited.
Yeah, I should really revisit Google Wave. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I probably haven't even gone into Google Wave in 6 months.
Yeah.
It's just...
Maybe go into Google Wave and start a wave about it coming out of beta and how you never use it.
Maybe I will.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, iPhone, I don't know if you heard, but iPhone 4 is coming on Thursday.
Or a Wednesday.
Or
for those
possibly
few.
Wednesday. Or possibly not at all.
Or possibly...
Or if you're in,
sorry, you didn't
if you're in
actually
the UK,
anything.
then not till August. Because...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's coming out on the 24th. But O2, which used to have the exclusivity on the iPhone, has said that if you're not already with O2, you're not getting an iPhone 4 till August. And it's not great. I think we have about 5 or 6 different networks carriers that are going to have the iPhone 4 this time. But O2 said, yeah, basically, if you're not with us already, then you're going to have to wait to be with us until August. Not good.
Usually it's the other way around. Usually they're like, oh, if you're new, if we're signing up a new person, we'll give you the whole thing. And the people we've got locked under contracts already, we'll treat them like crap.
They can wait in the bread line.
Well, a lot of these people had the iPhone 3G and were in 2-year contracts, and then didn't upgrade to the 3GS because they were in a contract, and now they're out of the contract. And so they basically got this option where when they signed up, they had the exclusive. Now, 2 years later, they've got 4 or 5 competitors all offering and trying to get their customers. So they have to offer, I think, an incentive to say, no, really stay with us. And the option is basically, we're going to give you an iPhone before anyone else. So they're kind of in a rock and a hard place in a way.
On to the voicemails. Our first one comes from Ron, who was responding to the story from Friday about Mobile Me getting enhanced but still being $99.
Hi. I wanted to comment on Becky's and Sarah's reflections on the Mobile Me service not being free, and I didn't think they were really looking at it from the right perspective. I mean, yes, services that Google and Yahoo have offer somewhat similar functionality as what's available with Mobile Me, but those services are ad-based, and because of that, I don't think there is a reasonable expectation of privacy. If you put your data on those services, it's going to be mined. And I think it's foolish to have any expectation of privacy when you use an ad-generated base, for payment service. Mobile Me, on the other hand, because I pay for it, I have a full expectation of privacy, and I think that's a very important factor to keep in mind. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well. My name is Ron, and thanks, and have a good day.
And I approve this message.
Hi, Ron.
So, interesting point saying, look, yeah, you get what you pay for. If it's free, they're going to share data with advertisers. It's not exactly privacy. It's not like they're going to take all of your, stored data and hand it to the advertisers. I mean, there are still service level agreements. There's still, terms of use that protect your privacy, but it's a different level.
Yeah, I get Ron's point about. I get Ron's point. Ron, I get your point. Becky and I actually differed a little bit because I was like, Mobile Me it's very helpful for me. This is a service I want. I'll pay $100, to find my phone in a jungle somewhere, which has actually happened. And Becky's sort of like, I don't know. I mean, a lot of other services do the same thing. I think more the idea that your data isn't private if you're not paying for it is that. I don't agree with so much as paying for something that's going to be stable. My data won't be lost. The company isn't going to go out of business.
Or just cancel
I'm not going to get screwed.
That service. Yeah, exactly.
That is more of what I feel like I'm paying for. I'm not. I don't know. I mean, that would mean every free service that's of use to me, I need to start getting, paranoid that they're mining my data and my privacy is compromised and I don't know. I think it's a agree with him, but sort of for a different reason.
I think it's a fair point. I just don't know how much of a real concern it would be, depending on what your data needs are there. Right. Yeah. But stability. I think your point is actually even more of a concern.
It is. I use a lot of Flickr. Flickr ever goes away, I am so screwed.
Or
I don't
if you
even
don't pay for Flickr and they're like, oh, your old pictures, they're still there. You can't see them.
And that's why I pay for it. That's why I have a Flickr Pro account. I mean, those are the sorts of things that, it might be flawed logic, but that's more of my concern is stability.
On to Tom, the plumber, who has a point about cell phone radiation.
Hey, folks, this is the plumber Tom in Minneapolis. I was just calling about the cell phone radiation talk. I'm wondering if those bumpers that Apple is pushing with the iPhone 4s are indeed meant to keep us from touching the antenna that wraps around the outside. And secondly, I personally am not too concerned about the radiation from my cell phone because every now and then that mutation is beneficial. And I can't wait to find out what my new powers are going to be.
That's true. Touching the antenna really doesn't hurt anything except maybe the reception, but that could be why the bumpers are there. But radiation mutations can make you a superhero.
Yeah. So what's, is this the point where we all go around the room and say, Nate, if you could have one superhero ability, what would it be?
What would your superhero ability be, Nate?
To install iOS 4 on this phone.
Well, I guess we're superheroes then.
Yes, Sarah and I are already superheroes.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, I could do with you flying here because this thing's dead.
Flying would be a good superpower as well.
Flying's good. Visibility.
I will keep my cell phone next to my head until that happens.
Yeah.
Now, on Friday, you guys talked about an emailer who suggested maybe the iPhone's just a bad phone, and that's why people have all these reception issues. It's not AT&T's fault at all.
Right.
And the fact was brought up that in other countries like the UK, you have multiple providers, so you could actually find out, like, is the iPhone the same on different providers?
Yeah, and we kind of said, let us know. We're not, there's only so many friends we have.
We got a good 20 or so emails, mostly from Canada, some from the UK and Australia, a couple from Europe, and they varied. Some people said, yeah, I use an iPhone and it drops calls, and other phones that I use on the same network don't. We had a lot of people who said, no, I use an iPhone on O2 or Rogers, and it's great. Never has any problem. And it was about 70% positive to 30% negative. So it seemed like the trend was iPhone doesn't seem to be the issue. Nate,
right.
You have an iPhone and you're in the UK. What's your experience?
Yeah, well, I have two experiences on this. So I get drop calls all the time. All the time. It drives me mad to the point that I've started taking screenshots of every time it does it so I can make a montage. And that'll be really fun. But then when I went over to the US a few weeks ago, the first thing I did, send a text message. It was on AT&T, wouldn't send, just flat out wouldn't send. So I have experiences in the UK on O2 where it was really, really poor, and then went over to the US and it was really, really poor on AT&T. So that makes me think it's not just my network, it's something else, and the only something else I have is the phone. But on the other hand, I have a 3G dongle on O2, and that's brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic. So it seems to me to be something to do with just the voice side of things rather than the data. I don't know if that's something you guys get with data dropouts, but at least in my experience, it's text and voice that I have the problems with in both sides of the Atlantic.
Same with me, Nate. It's not the data. It's never been the data.
Oh, it's been the data for me.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, so we're kind of...
Yeah.
There's all sorts of...
And voice and text.
And voice and text.
It's been all of it.
Text not even so much. The voice is really... That's really the only thing I have to complain about. And even I don't feel like I have it as bad as some of my peers.
Let's move on to Paul.
Paul, who calls himself the Liverpool-supporting Canadian video editor in Vancouver, British Columbia. Hi, Paul. He writes in and says, hey, guys, enjoying the show. Sarah and Becky were chatting about DVRing the World Cup games and avoiding spoilers and the way that games are at work. We have to get home and jam in about 6 hours of football just to watch all of the games. As an avid lover of the game, I get frustrated when fellow North American friends try to get into the sport only to get a boring, goalless draw. And he's right. They can be very boring. So I started up a site called WorldCupGameRatings.com and simply rate how good each game is, completely spoiler-free, and this way that the DVR people can pick the best game when they get home, avoid the stinkers, or just catch highlights on specific games that are middle of the road. I love this idea. When Paul first went, I was like, okay, let's look at your website that you made. But it's a perfect idea because it's true. I don't actually have a DVR, but let's say I was DVRing all the games. I mean, there have been a lot of live games that I've sat through and been like, I could have done something else for the last 2.5 hours of my life. And
it's nice because it's spoiler-free. You don't have to ask somebody about, like, is this game worth watching, and risk them telling you everything you're going to see.
Exactly. It's sort of like, hey, this is, it gets really exciting, at the 70-minute mark, or whatever. If I have an incentive to watch something that people are going to be talking about, because I think a good part of this whole World Cup fever is you and I being able to kind of, did you see that? Oh, isn't that great? And we're sharing this thing, and people are, getting each other psyched up about it.
And complaining about the Vuvuzela, those two things.
Well, I've decided that I like the Vuvuzela, and I'm going to get one for my home.
It actually doesn't bother me.
It doesn't. It's kind of fun. But that's sort of the point of it. And I'm not going to say anything bad about football, soccer, whatever you want to call it. But some games are simply more exciting than others.
That's true of any sport.
As any sport would be, but I think maybe particularly
World Cup. Yeah? All right. Well, Nate, we know you don't give a rat's ass about football, so thanks for bearing with us during that email. And let the folks know where they can find your great website that you run single-handedly. Okay. Well, not exactly, but.
No, it's Wired, but the UK version, so wired.co.uk. And it's basically Wired, but UK and Europe specific. And on Twitter / at Nate Lanxon. There'll be a spelling somewhere, I'm sure. And that's what I do.
All right, Nate. We've known each other a long time. Used to work at CNET and was a listener to Buzz Out Loud before that. It's great. It's great to do Tech News today with you today.
Yeah, it's great. It's my my first time on any Twitch show, so it's been fantastic. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Welcome, then. We will definitely have you back again.
I enjoyed it. More Nate.
You've got Sarah's approval. That's all you need.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And thanks to everybody who helps make this possible. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, TNT@twit.tv, or give us a call. The number is 260-TNT-SHOW, 260-TNT-SHOW. We'll see you tomorrow.